My family treated me like trash for 17 years, and my twin brother stole my girlfriend, then a millionaire grandfather I never knew appeared. And my family begged forgiveness when they found out about the $2.3 million he left me. I'm 25 years old. I'm an electrical engineer, and honestly, I never thought I'd write this. But I need to get this out of my system because what happened last year with my family still has me processing a lot of contradictory emotions. The thing is, I was the black sheep of my family my entire life, and after 8 years of not talking to them, suddenly they wanted to reconnect with me. And well, turns out there were very specific reasons for that which had nothing to do with family love or genuine remorse. Let me rewind a bit so you understand the full context. I grew up in a super athletic family, like everyone was into sports except me. I have 3 older siblings. Marcus, who's my twin, we'll get to him. Trust me. Daniel, who's now a corporate lawyer and was always the football brain. And Jessica, who's a nurse, but in high school, was like the star of the volleyball team. My parents, Linda and Thomas, basically lived and breathed sports. Every weekend was games, tournaments, practices, training, that kind of family where the living room is full of trophies and pictures of sports uniforms. And then there was me, Nathan, the weird kid who preferred archery. Don't get me wrong, archery is a sport, but apparently it wasn't masculine or exciting enough for my parents. During my teenage years, I participated in like 20 archery tournaments, some pretty important ones where I won medals and everything, and you know how many my parents came to? 1. Literally, only 1. And that was because it coincided with a Marcus tournament in the same city, so technically they didn't even go specifically for me. I remember standing on the podium receiving my gold medal and looking for my parents in the crowd, and obviously they weren't there. My coach patted me on the back and told me I'd done great, but honestly, at that moment, I just wanted to go home and lock myself in my room. Marcus, my twin, was the complete opposite. He played football, was the star quarterback, had tons of friends, girls adored him. Basically, he was the golden version of the two of us, and the worst part is that when we were kids, like until we were 10, we were super close, We did everything together. We had that twin bond that people always talk about. But when we started high school and he became popular and I stayed in my loner archer thing, things changed. He stopped talking to me at school, acted like he didn't even know me when he was with his friends, and at home he was distant. My parents never said anything about it. I think for them it was normal that Marcus was more sociable and I was more reserved. When I was 15, I started dating Rachel. She was cute, smart, and most importantly, she seemed genuinely interested in archery. She'd come watch me practice, ask me about techniques, even tried to learn, although she was never very good at it. We dated for 3 years, and honestly, I thought she was the one. That high school love you think will last. Forever. We talked about going to the same university, eventually moving in together. All those things that teenagers in love plan without having any idea how the real world works. The summer before we turned 18, things felt weird. Rachel started canceling plans, saying she was busy with her family or work or whatever. I was applying to engineering universities. Specifically, I wanted to study electrical engineering because I was always fascinated by how technology worked. And Miami had an excellent program, so that was my first choice. Rachel was supposedly going to apply to schools in Florida too so we could be together. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, except she was increasingly unavailable and more distant. And then came that day in July. I arrived early at Rachel's house, like I wanted to surprise her because it was our 3-year anniversary. Yeah, I know, super cheesy. And I had this whole romantic plan in my stupid teenage head. I went in through the back door because her mom always told me I could come in that way. We were practically family at that point. I went up the stairs to her room and heard voices. At first I thought maybe she was on the phone, but then I recognized the second voice. It was Marcus. My twin brother was in my girlfriend's room, and when I opened the door, well, I'm not going to go into graphic details, but basically, I found them in a situation that left no room for misunderstandings or excuses. I stood there, probably for a full 10 seconds, unable to move a single muscle. Rachel screamed and tried to cover herself. Marcus got up and started to say something, but I couldn't process the words. It was like my brain had disconnected. I remember the only thing I was thinking was, this can't be happening. It has to be a nightmare. I'm going to wake up any moment. But I didn't wake up. Rachel started crying and saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, over and over. And Marcus, the son of a bitch, put his pants on and told me, bro, let me explain. This isn't what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. I had literally just found them having sex in her bed. What else could it be? I yelled something at him. I don't even remember what exactly. Probably curses and questions about why and since when, and Rachel, between sobs, admitted they'd been seeing each other for like 4 months. 4 months. A third of our last year together, she'd been sleeping with my twin brother behind my back. I felt like someone had hit me in the stomach with a baseball bat. I couldn't breathe right. My hands were shaking, and all I could see was red. Marcus tried to approach me, put his hand on my shoulder and said something like, "Forgive me. We didn't mean for it to happen like this. It just happened." And something in me broke. I punched him. Hard. In the face. He fell backwards, hit the wall, and started bleeding from his nose. Rachel screamed. I ran out of there, got in my car, a 2010 Honda Civic inherited from my grandmother who had died 2 years earlier, and drove aimlessly for hours. I think I ended up in some empty parking lot, crying like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. When I finally got home that night, like at 2 in the morning, my parents were awake waiting for me. Apparently, Marcus had gotten home with a broken nose and had told them his version of events. And here comes the part that still hurts more than the betrayal itself. My parents yelled at me. They told me it was unacceptable that I had hit my brother, that no matter what had happened, violence was never the answer. That Marcus had explained to them that Rachel and he had fallen in love, and these things happen. My mom literally told me I should be more mature about it, that I should understand that sometimes the heart wants what it wants. I couldn't believe it. I yelled at them, told them Marcus had been sleeping with my girlfriend for months, that he had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and my dad just interrupted me and told me to stop the melodrama. That these were things that happened in adolescence and I'd get over Rachel eventually. They didn't even care that my twin brother, the person with whom I supposedly shared a special bond, had stabbed me in the back that way. They only cared that I had hit him and that their precious star quarterback had a broken nose 2 months before the start of football season. Things escalated badly. Marcus threatened to press assault charges, and my parents, instead of defending me or mediating the situation, basically took his side. They said if Marcus wanted to go to the police, I had brought it on myself. Daniel and Jessica didn't help either. They also thought I had overreacted with the punch. I felt completely alone in my own family, like it was me against all of them. Then my Aunt Dorothy, my mom's sister, intervened. She herself had been estranged from the family for years, for reasons I never fully understood. When I was a kid, something about disagreements with my grandparents and about her life decisions. She called me and told me she had heard what happened, that if I wanted, I could go live with her while I applied to universities and got away from all the drama. My parents agreed. I think because that way Marcus wouldn't press charges and I'd be out of their sight. I moved in with Aunt Dorothy like a week after the incident, taking only my clothes, my archery equipment, and my laptop. Living with Aunt Dorothy was revelatory. She lived like an hour away, in a small but cozy house. And for the first time in my life, I felt like someone really saw me as a person and not as the disappointing son who didn't play team sports. She never had children of her own, worked as an accountant, and was incredibly understanding. She asked me about archery, about my plans to study engineering, about how I felt. Real conversations, you know what I mean? Not just a robotic "how was school?" I applied to university in Miami and got accepted, with a partial scholarship. My parents paid only the first semester. After that, I made it clear I didn't want their money. I got a part-time job, student loans, anything to not depend on them. I changed my phone number, blocked my entire family from all my social media, and basically disappeared from their lives. It wasn't hard, honestly. Nobody, except Aunt Dorothy, tried to contact me after the first few months, and that confirmed I had made the right decision. During those 8 years, I built a completely new life. I graduated in electrical engineering, got an excellent job at a tech company, met Rebecca at an engineering conference when I was 23. She's a software engineer. We got married a year later, and when I was 24, we found out we were expecting a baby. Life was good, you know? I had a solid career, an amazing wife who supported me in everything, and we were excited about becoming parents. I kept regular contact with Aunt Dorothy. She was basically my only, real family at that point. And then, last December, 8 years after I left, I received an email from Jessica. The subject line said, "Please read this. It's important." I almost deleted it without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was long, like 3 paragraphs about how the family missed me, how they had reflected on what happened, how they wanted to reconnect, especially now that I had a family of my own. It said Marcus and Rachel had gotten married, which was obvious, I guess, and that he wanted to apologize properly, that my parents also wanted to see me, that they realized they hadn't been fair to me. It all sounded very nice and remorseful. I showed the email to Rebecca, and she told me to do what felt right, but that she'd support me in any decision. I told Aunt Dorothy, and she immediately said it sounded weird, that after 8 years of total silence it didn't make sense that suddenly everyone wanted to make peace. But part of me, that stupid part that I still wanted to believe that maybe my family really had realized how they had treated me, considered responding. The weeks of December went by and I kept receiving messages. Daniel wrote me saying it would be good to see each other, that a lot had happened and I was missing important family moments. My mom sent me a physical letter to my work address. No idea how she got it. With old photos of when we were kids, and a note about how it pained her not to know her granddaughter. Yeah, because by then our daughter Lily had already been born. She was 1 year old, and I hadn't shared anything about her with my original family. Rebecca was pregnant again. We were super excited because we wanted to have 2 children close in age, and everything seemed to be going perfectly. But the stress of all these messages from my family started affecting me. I couldn't sleep well. I was constantly thinking about whether I should give them a chance or not, whether I was the one being resentful by not forgiving after so much time. And then, something horrible happened. Rebecca suffered a miscarriage at 14 weeks. We were devastated. She had to take time off work. I tried to be there for her as much as I could, but it was a very dark period for both of us. And in the middle of all that pain, messages kept coming from my family wanting to meet, wanting me to visit them for Christmas or New Year's. One night, like at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, I called Aunt Dorothy. I told her about the miscarriage, about how I felt lost, about all the messages from my family, and she told me something that changed everything. She said, "Nathan, honey, there's something you need to know. Your family lied to your grandfather William about what happened 8 years ago. Turns out my paternal grandfather, William, whom I barely knew because he lived in another state and we only saw at Christmas when I was a kid, had been asking about me for years. Aunt Dorothy had seen him at a couple of family gatherings she occasionally attended. They were big events like weddings or funerals where contact couldn't be avoided, and he always asked about Nathan. Where's Nathan? How's Nathan? Apparently, my parents and siblings told him that I had been the problematic one, that I had cheated on Rachel, that I had violently attacked Marcus without provocation, and that I had decided to cut contact with the whole family because I was resentful and dramatic. They had completely flipped the story. In their version, Marcus was the victim who had defended Rachel's honor when he discovered I was cheating on her, and I was the violent, lying brother who couldn't accept the truth. My grandfather, who apparently was a very traditional man and strict about matters of honor and family, had believed all that shit for 8 years. But here comes the interesting part. Aunt Dorothy told me that recently my grandfather had discovered the truth. She didn't tell me exactly how, but apparently, someone, she suspected maybe a cousin or someone outside the immediate family, had mentioned something to him that didn't match the official story, and Grandpa had started investigating on his own. He had confronted my parents, Marcus, everyone, and finally the truth had come out. That Marcus had had an affair with my girlfriend, that I had reacted by hitting him, that my parents had taken his side, and that I had left for that reason. Grandpa, according to Aunt Dorothy, had exploded. He was furious that they had lied to him for almost a decade. And here's the kicker. Grandpa William was a multi-millionaire. He had built a real estate empire during his life, had properties all over the country, and at 79 years old, he was in the process of organizing his inheritance. Upon discovering the lies, he had told my parents and siblings that he was going to cut them completely out of his will unless they made peace with me and gave me a genuine apology. There was the answer. They didn't want to reconnect out of love or genuine remorse. They wanted to reconnect because the millionaire grandpa was threatening to disinherit them if they didn't. Everything suddenly made sense. The suspicious timing after 8 years of silence, the insistence from all family members at the same time, the emotional letters full of nostalgia. It was all theater, manipulation to comply with Grandpa's ultimatum and secure their share of the inheritance. I felt sick, literally, sick to my stomach. Rebecca found me in the kitchen at 4 in the morning, sitting on the floor crying, and when I told her everything, she got furious too. She told me I didn't owe them anything, that clearly they only cared about money, and that I had every right to continue no contact with them. But then something unexpected happened. A week later, I received a call from an unknown number. Normally I don't answer, but something made me press the button. It was my grandfather, William. His voice was hoarse but firm, and the first thing he said was, "Nathan, I'm your grandfather. I need to talk to you." I stayed silent, not knowing what to say, and he continued. "They lied to me about you for 8 years. I just discovered the truth, and I want you to know I'm deeply sorry." We talked for almost 2 hours. He told me his version of events, how he had believed I was the problematic and violent grandson, how he felt betrayed when he discovered it was all a lie. He asked me about my life, about my career, about my wife and my daughter. When I told him Lily was 1 year old, he got emotional. He said he'd like to meet her, meet us, if I was willing. I asked him directly if the reason my family was contacting me was because he had threatened to disinherit them. He laughed, a bitter laugh, and said, "That's right. I gave them an ultimatum. Either they make peace with you genuinely, or they don't see a cent of my money. But you don't owe them anything, Nathan. You don't have to forgive them if you don't. I want to. I just wanted you to know the truth and that I personally want to meet you. No pressure. No conditions." We agreed to meet. Grandpa lived like 3 hours by car from where I was, so we decided that Rebecca, Lily, and I would visit him the following weekend. I told him I hadn't forgiven my family and didn't plan to, just because he asked, and he told me he completely respected that it was my decision. The visit was weird but good. Grandpa William lived in a huge mansion, had service staff and all that stuff, and when he opened the door, his face lit up when he saw Lily. He held her, played with her, and I saw a man who genuinely regretted having missed 8 years of my life. He showed us photos of when my dad was a kid, told me family stories I had never heard, and treated me with more respect and affection in those few hours than my parents had given me in 18 years. But there was a tense moment. At some point in the conversation, when we were talking about Lily, he asked why her middle name wasn't a family name. Lily is named Lily Rose. Rebecca and I chose names we liked without thinking about family traditions, especially because I had no connection to my family at that point. I explained this, and he frowned. Said something about the importance of traditions and family names. Something in me ignited. I told him very clearly that my family had abandoned me, that I had built my life without them, and that my children would have the names that Rebecca and I decided without any influence from people who were never present. That I appreciated that he wanted to meet me now, but that I wasn't going to tolerate anyone, not even him, questioning the decisions I made with my wife about our children. There was an uncomfortable silence, like 30 seconds that felt like an eternity, and then Grandpa nodded. He told me, "You're right. I have no right to have an opinion on that. Forgive me." And that was it. He respected my boundary, apologized, and we continued with the visit as if nothing had happened. Before we left, he asked me to talk alone in his study. Rebecca took Lily to the garden with the staff, and he and I sat in his office surrounded by law books and real estate documents. He told me, "Nathan, I want you to know something. I've modified my will. Your parents and siblings will receive the minimum that the law requires, which in this state is practically nothing if I leave an explicit statement of my reasons. The rest, which is approximately $2.3 million in cash, properties, and stocks, will go to you. I froze. 2.3 million. It was an obscene amount of money that I never, not even in my wildest dreams, had imagined having. I told him I didn't need his money, that I hadn't come for that I only wanted to meet him. And he told me, I know. That's why I'm leaving it to you. Because you're the only one who's not looking for it. He told me that my family had been trying to manipulate him for months, organizing visits, bringing him their grandchildren, Daniel and Jessica's children, trying to be the perfect family for him, all to secure their inheritance. And he had been playing along while investigating the truth about me. When he discovered the lies, when he confirmed that I was the victim in this whole situation, he made the decision to change his will. I asked him if my family knew about the change in the will. He told me not yet, but that they would find out soon because his lawyer had sent copies of the updated documents to all beneficiaries, as required by law. That he estimated in a week or two, everyone would receive official notification. We went home that day with my head spinning. Rebecca couldn't believe it. 2.3 million. It was enough to pay off our mortgage, secure college education for Lily and any other children we might have, and there would still be a ton left for savings and investments. But we also knew what this meant, that my family was going to explode when they found out. We didn't have to wait long. 2 weeks later, exactly as Grandpa had predicted, the messages started. But this time they weren't sweet or conciliatory. Marcus sent me like 15 text messages calling me manipulative, saying I had tricked Grandpa into taking away their inheritance. My mom left me a voicemail crying, saying, how could I do this to them, that we were family. Daniel sent me a legal email, like with lawyer language, suggesting there was undue influence and they were going to challenge the will. Jessica was the only one who tried a different approach. She called me and tried to appeal to my emotional side, saying she understood I was angry but that I should think about my nephews and nieces, about how this would affect them. I told her my nephews and nieces weren't my responsibility, that their parents should have thought about their children before lying to Grandpa for almost a decade. My dad sent me an especially venomous message, accusing me of waiting for this moment since I left, of having planned everything to get revenge on them. As if I had known Grandpa was rich, that he would discover the truth, and that he would change his will. It was absurd. I barely knew Grandpa before all this. The last time I had seen him before that visit was when I was like 12 years old at a Christmas gathering. And then they did something I didn't see coming. Daniel, Marcus, and my parents filed a lawsuit. Yes, they sued me and Grandpa, alleging that I shouldn't receive the inheritance because my children didn't carry the family surname, which was a lie. Technically, Lily has my last name. It's just that her middle name isn't a traditional family name, and that this demonstrated I had rejected the family and therefore shouldn't benefit from the family inheritance. It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. Grandpa got furious when he found out. He hired the best law firm in his city and assured me this would be handled appropriately. I also got a lawyer, obviously, and everything became a legal circus for several months. The process was exhausting. Depositions, hearings, endless paperwork. My family hired testimonies from people who supposedly could attest that I had always been problematic and violent. They brought Rachel, who was now Rachel with my family's last name because she had married Marcus, to testify that I had been abusive in our relationship, completely false. It was surreal to hear lie after lie being presented as facts in a court, but truth has a way of coming out. Aunt Dorothy testified in my favor, telling how she had taken me in after the rest of the family abandoned me. My high school archery coach, who still remembered my parents for their absence at tournaments, gave testimony about how I had been a dedicated and responsible teenager who simply didn't receive family support. We even found old text messages from Rachel, admitting the affair with Marcus that I had saved on an old phone. The judge didn't take long to decide. He basically said it was evident that my parents and siblings were trying to manipulate the system to receive money that Grandpa had freely decided to give me, that there was no evidence whatsoever of undue influence on my part, and that Grandpa William was in complete use of his mental faculties when he changed his will. The lawsuit was dismissed, and my parents and siblings were ordered to pay the legal costs of both sides. You'd think after that they'd give up, but no. They started sending me messages begging for forgiveness, not because they genuinely felt it, but because they wanted me to convince Grandpa to forgive them and reinstate them in the will. Marcus wrote me a super long message about how he had been young and stupid, how time had taught him to value family, all that rehearsed speech I guess he hoped would move me. I told all of them, individually, that I wasn't going to do anything to help them, that they had made their decisions 8 years ago when they chose to lie instead of accepting responsibility, and now they had to live with the consequences. I blocked everyone except Jessica, who eventually stopped writing when she realized I wasn't going to change my mind. Grandpa William passed away in May, like 6 months after I met him. It was a sudden illness, matter of 3 weeks from diagnosis to his death. I was there in his last days. He got to know Rebecca more deeply, spent time with Lily, and told me he was proud of me, that I had built a good life despite having a shitty family, and that he hoped I would use the money he was leaving me wisely. He left me a letter, too, which I read after his funeral. In it, he wrote about how he regretted not having met me earlier, how he regretted having believed the lies about me, and how he hoped I would raise my children with the love and support he didn't give my dad and my dad didn't give me, to break the cycle. Basically, I cried reading that letter. I'm not going to lie. The will was formally read 2 weeks after the funeral. My parents and siblings were there, obviously hoping for some kind of last-minute miracle. There wasn't one. I received $2.3 million as Grandpa had specified, plus a property on the coast that he knew I had liked when he mentioned it in one of our conversations. My parents received $5,000 each, with a note from Grandpa, explaining that amount was symbolic of his disappointment in them. Marcus and Daniel received nothing because, according to Grandpa's words in the legal document, they demonstrated a lack of integrity and character. The scene after the reading was pathetic. My mom tried to approach me in tears. My dad yelled at me that this was my fault, that I had destroyed the family. Daniel threatened me with more legal action even though his lawyer told him clearly he had no case. Marcus just looked at me with so much hatred, I felt like he wanted to hit me, but he didn't do anything because there were witnesses and legal personnel present. I left there with Rebecca. We put Lily in her car seat and drove home in silence. Part of me felt victorious, yes, but another part just felt sad. Sad that things had gotten to this point, that money had proven what my family really valued, that Grandpa had to die for me to finally receive validation. Since then, several months have passed. We continue to receive occasional messages. My mom sends me texts every so often with sad stories about how they're struggling financially, hoping I'll take pity and give them money. Daniel contacted me once to ask for help with his children's college tuition. Jessica wrote me, asking if I could help her with a down payment on a house, because apparently they're having financial problems. I told them all the same thing: no. Rebecca and I made the decision to use the money responsibly. We paid off our mortgage completely, established college funds for Lily and any other children we might have, invested a considerable portion with a financial advisor, and donated $100,000 to charities that support young people in difficult family situations. The rest is in savings and in the coastal property that we'll probably use as a family vacation home or eventually sell. I don't regret anything. Yes, $2.3 million is a lot of money, and yes, it significantly changed our financial situation. But honestly, the most valuable thing I got from all this wasn't the money. It was the validation. It was knowing that someone, even if it was the grandpa I barely knew, saw the truth and decided I deserved to be supported. It was having proof that I wasn't crazy, that my family really had treated me unfairly all those years. Rebecca is pregnant again, by the way. We're 10 weeks now, and this time it seems everything is going well. We've already decided that if it's a boy, he'll be named Owen James, and if it's a girl, it'll be Emma Claire. Names we like, without any consideration for family traditions or pressure from people who aren't part of our lives. Aunt Dorothy continues to be part of our life. We see her often. Lily adores her, and she's excited about the new baby. She's the only grandmother our children are going to know, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes I wonder how things would have been if Marcus had never slept with Rachel, if my parents had supported me instead of taking his side, if my family had been honest with Grandpa from the beginning. But they're useless questions, you know? You can't change the past. You can only decide how to move forward. And I chose to move forward without them, with my own family, the one I created, the one that loves me unconditionally, and the one that doesn't measure me, according to sports trophies or expectations I never asked to fulfill. My twin brother Marcus is still married to Rachel. Apparently, they have 2 children. I'll never meet them, and I'm at peace with that. Daniel is still a corporate lawyer, and apparently his failed lawsuit against me tarnished his professional reputation a bit, which doesn't give me satisfaction but doesn't give me pity either. Jessica continues working as a nurse, and of everyone, she's the one who generates the most mixed feelings in me, because at least she tried to maintain some contact before everything exploded, but in the end she also chose her side and has to live with that. My parents, Linda and Thomas, according to Aunt Dorothy, are bitter and continue blaming me for everything. They haven't accepted any responsibility for their actions, which doesn't surprise me at all. People like that never do. Last week, Lily asked me if she had grandparents like her friends from kindergarten. I told her the age-appropriate truth for a 2-year-old, that she has a Grandma Dorothy who loves her very much, and that's enough. Someday when she's older, I'll tell her the whole story, if she wants to know it. For now, I just want her to grow up, knowing she's loved, that her mom and dad will always be there for her, and that no matter what happens, we'll support her in whatever she chooses to do with her life, whether it's sports, art, engineering, or anything that makes her happy. That's what really matters in the end. Not the money, not the vindication, not the family drama, just making sure you break the damaging cycles and create something better for the next generation. And that's exactly what Rebecca and I are doing.